Happy Monday, and welcome back to the LordanArts channel. I'm John Lordan. Thank you so much for spending some time with us here today. Case Cracked is the show where we look into a mystery, and what are the critical pieces that help solve that mystery. I'd like to thank Miss L for bringing this case to our attention, and it's called Deep Dive. Kimberly Schmidt lived her whole life happily in Spokane, Washington. She graduated high school from Shadle Park and earned her master's degree from Eastern Washington University in accounting and business human resource management. She fell in love and had a daughter, but that relationship would come to an end. It seemed that her true love was the ocean, and she really enjoyed the water in the beautiful Pacific Northwest. In 2012, Kimberly was working full-time at Pitney Bowes, a global shipping and mailing company that's known for the postage meters and other mailing supplies and equipment that they provide. She also worked part-time as a scuba instructor for the Scuba Center of Spokane, a job she was passionate for in more ways than one. That is where she met Daniel Arteaga. Daniel had been married for over 20 years at that point, but seemingly, Kimberly fell in love with the man. They had a relationship that lasted 6.5 years. The fact that he was married was a secret she kept from almost everyone, including her close family. At one point, she had decided to turn over a new leaf, or I guess it would be an old leaf. At the start of November, she and her ex-boyfriend, Joseph Regalado, the father of her daughter Aubrey, decided to start seeing each other again. She planned to spend New Year's Eve with Joseph while Aubrey was staying the night at a friend's house. The 1st of January came, and Tony, Kimberly's mother, had received a call from the friend Aubrey was staying with. She said that Kimberly never came to pick Aubrey up that day, and they couldn't reach her by phone. The night before, Tony says she had talked to her daughter late in the evening and was left with a feeling that something was wrong. When she received the call the next morning, it seemed to confirm her suspicions. When Tony arrived at Kimberly's house, she called Daniel and asked him to stay on the telephone with her while she entered. She was afraid to enter the house on her own, and with good reason. The doors were locked, but Tony was one of only 4 people who had keys. Aubrey, Kimberly, and Daniel were the other 3. Kimberly wasn't in the front of the house, but when her mother entered her bedroom, she found her lying on the bed surrounded by blood. She also had a pillow over her face. Fearing the worst, Tony asked Daniel to call 911. After checking her daughter and finding that she had no pulse, Tony called 911 as well. An autopsy would show that she had been shot in the head but had suffered from her injury for up to 6 hours before she passed away. No other results or a ruling in her death would be given until toxicology results came back. When investigators arrived, they found an unusual crime scene. The house itself seemed untouched, as there were no signs of a struggle or forced entry. Kimberly was laying in bed with a close contact gunshot wound to the right side of her head. A .25 caliber pocket pistol that Daniel had bought for her to use as protection was laying on the bed beside her dominant hand, which was her right. However, the pistol had been placed inside a woman's black sock, with the barrel protruding from a hole in the end of the sock. There was a smear of blood on the wall behind the bed, and a lamp had been knocked over, leaving the power cord draped across her body. It at first appeared as though Kimberly may have taken her own life, but the homemade silencer sock raised suspicion, as well as the lamp and blood smear. This seemed to indicate that she had been moved after death, possibly in an attempt to stage the scene. When her family was questioned, they stated that Kimberly was happy in her job and social life. They knew of no one who would want to hurt the devoted mother. Despite the fact that she was supposed to spend time with her daughter's father, Joseph, that night, when Daniel was questioned, it was found that he actually may have been the last person to see her alive. Daniel said that on December 31st, Kimberly bought a new washing machine that he had picked up and delivered to her home. Afterward, he stayed for a few hours while he helped her fold laundry. Then he took the old washing machine to the local recycling center. They were closed, so he went back to Kimberly's house. As the night wore on, he said that they spent time together talking and became intimate. Late that evening, she began to feel ill and decided to stay home instead of driving to see Joseph so they could spend New Year's Eve together as they had previously planned. Daniel said that he drove to a nearby convenience store and bought her a nighttime cold sleep aid, which he gave to her before he left her sleeping at about 4 a.m. When Daniel's wife was questioned later about her husband and the affair that he had, she was completely shocked. She knew nothing about the 6.5-year relationship. She stated that she had texted her husband during the day and most of the night, but he had never answered. He arrived home on January 1st at about 4:40 a.m. Daniel cooperated fully with investigators and provided them with the clothes he wore the night before and his cell phone. He allowed them to take pictures of his body to look for signs that he may have been in a recent fight. He also allowed a DNA swab and to let them search his truck. Aubrey's father, Joseph, was questioned next. He agreed that he and Kimberly were supposed to meet and spend the evening together, but that she never made it. He also verified that the two were trying to restart their relationship and had been happy. Joseph's alibi checked out for that night, and he also provided his cell phone. After cell phone tower data verified his alibi, Joseph was no longer considered a person of interest. When others were questioned about Kimberly and Daniel, investigators found friends that talked of how controlling Daniel was towards her. Neighbors stated that they had caught him spying on Kimberly and Joseph toward the end of 2011. Yet another friend told of at least one altercation the couple had where Daniel choked Kimberly. When the toxicology report came back, it showed that she had indeed taken Advil PM or some similar product the night that she died, but the amount in her system was way above normal, and it would have definitely impaired her. With this finding, the coroner determined that the case was a homicide. Daniel was quickly becoming the focus of the investigation. Text messages were found that showed Kimberly talking to Joseph, complaining about money that Daniel owed her. They read, "Dan owes me a lot of money. He's in my life only because of the money, and till that's paid. I hold both titles on his truck because of it. He has a ton of stuff on eBay, so he is there boxing and shipping so he can pay me, not just to hang out." The eBay account she talked about was associated with a PayPal account that Daniel and Kimberly had shared. Just 2 days after her murder, Daniel cleaned out the account, taking all of the money in it. Two things helped close out this investigation. One was the sock that was used to cover the murder weapon. The sock belonged to Kimberly, as Tony actually found the matching one in Kimberly's clothes hamper. When the murder weapon sock was tested for DNA, it contained samples of both her and Daniel's DNA. The sock found in the hamper only had Kimberly's on it. The second thing was that there were 2 lawsuits that Daniel and Kimberly were both involved in. The suits claimed that while instructing diving classes, one student had died and another had brain damage because of Daniel's negligence. Kimberly was expected to be a key witness. The two were notified about the lawsuits only 2 weeks before Kimberly was killed. Finally, in August of 2012, Daniel was arrested on charges of first-degree murder. In court in 2014, the prosecution alleged that Daniel drugged and killed Kimberly for breaking up their relationship, for holding the money he owed her over his head, and possibly for what she would have told the court if she had been able to appear as a witness in the 2 civil suits. Daniel and the defense, of course, proclaimed his innocence, but it didn't take the jury long to come back with their verdict. They found Daniel guilty of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to 30 years in prison. It'll be 2044 before Daniel's out of prison, and during that entire time, Kimberly's daughter will grow up without her mother, and her entire family will be grappling with a senseless loss. Case cracked. I would like to thank spokesman.com, krem.com, kxly.com, courts.wa.gov, khq.com, and newspapers.com. Of course, the biggest thank you goes to Christy Arnhart and Miss L for researching the case, and Christy Arnhart for writing it up. Here she is now to discuss it with us. Christy, is it just me, or does this guy just sound like a lot of trouble? I
so
mean,
much.
he's first of all, he's got a wife that is supporting him, it seems like. On top of that, he's borrowing money from his girlfriend to the point that she's ready to dump him. She's basically stringing him along just till she gets her cash back.
Yeah.
Did he have any job outside of scuba diving, the scuba diving training?
Well, his wife was the primary income source for the family,
Yeah.
leaving him free to spend time with other women, apparently.
Yeah. Wow. It also seems like his wife was kind of used to him not being responsive to texts and calls. I mean, I kind of doubt that you're training people on how to scuba dive on night during New Year's Eve, right?
No, absolutely not. I had a lot of trouble reconciling this because all of the reports say she was shocked. She had no idea. My first inclination was to say she was lying
Mm,
because a 6.5 year affair, and you can see the red flags in just the script itself. There
yeah.
had to be more. And I could not figure out how somebody, couldn't pick up on that. But relationships are different and so are people. For
Yeah,
all
and the
I know,
dynamics are crazy. I mean, who knows like what she does professionally first of all? Like does she have
Mhm,
an 80-hour work week or a 100-hour work week? Like that's going to all of a sudden create big pockets of time where he can go do this thing.
mhm.
And just dynamic of relationships in general. Just was it more important to her that she stayed in a 20-year marriage with someone than realizing the truth and then thinking I'm going to have to change this up or I'm going to have to get out of this?
And that was
Um,
something else I had thought of too. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think all of us have blind spots about certain things within ourselves and our situations, and
Hmm.
sometimes, thankfully, most of us have friends that'll kind of try to shake us out of that and be like, "What's going on? Like, aren't you seeing this?" Um,
Yeah. What's close to your heart and right in front of you is the hardest in the world to see.
yeah, yeah, and who knows if she doesn't have those types of relationships, she might have not had a shot at it, but
Mhm.
at least we have Daniel put away, and Kimberly's family can now be left in peace and just try to process this loss that they're saddled with.
Wouldn't that be great?
What?
It's it's just not quite.
Uh oh.
Daniel filed a lawsuit against Kimberly's mother, Tony, claiming that the possessions he left in Kimberly's house during the affair weren't being returned to him. And there were personal items. There was scuba diving gear, but there was also a lot of guns, and I mean a lot. He listed 22 rifles, 7 pistols, along with all the ammo, all of which totaled $20,000.
Well, I'm sure that's the number he came up with.
Yeah, it has to. My gosh.
He's suing the mother of the woman he's convicted of killing. That is mind blowing.
And monstrous.
Well, I thought we saw the pattern before of this guy treating women as currency, but here he is again, going after another woman for a sum of money.
And how terrible.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and speaking of unbelievable, I know that you've been searching for a story that has some proof of paranormal activity in it, and you've been looking for a long time
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
because I've thrown several out there, and you're just like, nah. Well, while there's no proof necessarily in this case, there was something really interesting that happened. Kimberly's mother, Tony, said that on the night of the murder, quote, at about 1:30 a.m., I woke up with this terrible feeling that something had happened to her. At about 4:30 a.m., I just felt like she was no longer with us. We know
Hmm.
she was shot several hours before she passed away, and he left her at 4 o'clock a.m. So, do you think she had a premonition?
I don't know that I would consider it a premonition necessarily. I do feel like there's connectivity between close people.
Hmm.
And I don't think it's just blood relatives. Like I've had a lot of moments where between my wife and I where it's like I'm thinking about something and all of a sudden the sentence literally comes out of her mouth and it's not
Hmm.
anything that we'd been talking about that day or even that week. So I do think there's something about I don't know brain waves or some type of connectivity at that level that we don't fully comprehend or understand.
Hmm.
And I know I've had similar experiences in my life, like felt like, oh my God, something terrible has just happened. And then you hear about it with a couple hours later or the next day. So no, I actually, I do think that there is something to that. Um, I don't know. I guess it's paranormal just because saying we don't understand it, but I don't think that's
Yeah.
the same as like, a psychic that's claiming to tap into something and,
It is different.
yeah, look
It
over
is.
here. But
It's all right. I'm going to take that one as a win then.
that's as close to a win as you're going to get right now. So yeah, that's all right, Christy. Thank you so much for your hard work on today's case. We really appreciate you. And I've got some other people to thank right now. Thank you, PayPal supporters Sigrid E. O'Hearn and Angela Welch Sola. Since 2015, we have always run limited commercial ads for the benefit of the viewers and the families that we're trying to help. Obviously, we can't do that without support. If you'd like to help, please visit LordanArts.com. There, you can sign up for Patreon, sign up for PayPal, buy merchandise, or even just buy us a coffee like Katie Olosi recently did. We really appreciate your support on our mission to run as few ads as possible and help as many cases as we can. Remember, you can get another LordanArts story every week on the Seriously Mysterious podcast. A new episode is coming tomorrow, and every Tuesday after that, visit seriouslymysterious.com and subscribe on your favorite podcatchers. While you're here, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon below so you never miss an upload. Also, if you want to catch one of our weekly Secret Studio live shows, be sure to check the description box below for our new channel link, LordanArts Studio 2. And of course, I'll be back with a new unsolved mystery for you on Friday, right here on the LordanArts channel.